Abobo, abobo, abobo. Like I said, this is how in Haitian Voodoo we say hello, good day, good afternoon. Yes, it's true. Abobo, this is Carly, owner of Inner Essence. I'm back with you all. How's it going? How's life treating you all? I know it's been rough. I understand. It just, like I said, it's so toxic. I feel like we are so overwhelmed with information. There's so much going on in this world, and we wonder, how do we deal with this? What's going on? Because all you hear is mostly negative information. So, how do you process it so that way we are not beating ourselves up more? We're not going with the flow in a sense that, the standard. People expect you to do certain things, act certain way. And what's really bugging me actually a lot is the idea that I didn't know there were so many psychic in the world. I didn't know there were so many healers in the world, which is a wonderful thing because that tells me like the world is awakening. A few years ago, I was doing a video and I said exactly that. There's a shift in the universe. Things are changing. That was 2 or 3 years ago that I said that. And when you really look at it, am I wrong? There is so much going on in this world. We are so confused. We are so afraid. We don't know what to do. Everybody's on social media. It's a good way for the world to connect. But at the same time, when it comes to spiritual stuff, because the word spiritual now sounds like a con. If you say someone, I'm a spiritual person, what exactly does that mean? Does this mean you're a psychic? Does this mean you're a healer? So, anyway, remember last week, my first video, I kind of introduced myself and I told you who I was, how I got here, and there was some gap in the story. Do you all remember that part where she was told, if you don't come to my house, you'll never give birth? And she said, where do you live? And the Virgin Mary, the woman or the being, or said, General Hospital, L'Hôpital Général. So she told her doctor, I have to go to the General Hospital. And the doctor was in shock. How could her own private patient there to say he's going to a public hospital? Oh no, that's unheard of. But when my mother insisted, he said, you know what? No problem. That's not a big deal. Just so and so. So if all I have to do is make a phone call, and what they'll do, they'll destroy someone, and that way you can have a private room. But the part that I didn't tell you about, and my mother will share the dream later with her doctor, is when she had that dream and told that she has to go to General Hospital, but it was a very specific information that was given. It was, okay, when you're having her, she has to be born with the people in public. What does that mean? Basically, even hospitals in the United States, if you go in a hospital, there's more than one bed in a room. Maybe 4 bed, maybe up to 6, depending exactly where the hospital is or how big the hospital is. So basically in Haiti, this hospital back then, let's not talk about what it is today, because we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about that. That's for another time. It's a large room, and it's very long, and it has several beds. So those beds are for people who cannot afford to go to a private hospital, and they have to be hospitalized. So if there's the different beds. So that's what they meant when they said not even a semi-private room. You cannot be in a private room or semi-private. So this doctor, Dr. So-and-so, called the hospital, and he could not get the hospital to destroy anybody for him. And he's like, I don't understand this. So he goes to my mother. He's like, I don't understand. I can't get you a private room. And then my mother took the dream why she's going to General Hospital and why he can't find her a private room. And he was like, oh, thank goodness. If you told me that before I started making the calls, I will never make the calls. Anyway, so I'm born, the whole blue dress, wearing blue and white and all that good stuff. But while my mom was in the hospital, she had C-section. That was a long time ago. Never mind how many years, okay? That was many years ago. So things are very different now. You have a C-section, you probably spend a day in the hospital, 24, 2 days maybe. When I had my first child, I was in the hospital for 5 days when I had C-section. Anyway, so of course her bougie friends, her bougie family, oh, they thought they were bougie. Anyway, middle class family, another story for another time. Anyway, so they was like, oh my God. They were like, oh my God, how could you be in this public place? Oh my God. So what they did, in the hospital in the US, there's this like the curtain. The curtain's like a privacy. You can say a privacy curtain, but there's nothing like that in Haiti. So they came and they did a privacy curtain for my mom. So my mom and the people in the hospital were just going off on my mother. They were like, oh, she must be some kind of big, you know what? Look how they're taking care of her. They were just dogging my mother. So of course my mother returned to being herself after surgery, after the C-section, and she started being herself. My mother, like I said, was a very compassionate, loving human being who hated suffering. So what did she do? She started feeding them. She started paying for the stuff. And one of the women came to my mother and said, I am so sorry. We must apologize. And my mother was like, what for? He said, we were talking so bad about you because you were being taken care of when we were being ignored. But even though my mother was in the hospital, but I feel like her doctor was also there, a private doctor, probably took care of everything because he's affiliated with the hospital. So, and my mother said, oh, don't worry about it. No big deal. And that's the kind of person my mother was. So, when I started having spiritual stuff going on, can't work, I'm getting mounted all the time. My spirits are coming. They're doing reading for people, doing work for people. And I was raised, remember, in a Catholic home because my mother, a devout Catholic. Remember that? So the first day I was mounted, and then afterwards, my mother said, so you mean to tell me you were chosen? You're going to be a queen? You mean you're going to be a queen of Loise? This is the queen. You're going to be a queen of Loise. That's the type of queen you are going to be? She said, if only I knew. That's what that woman who presented herself as the Virgin Mary, she said, I would have given her a beat down if I knew when she said you were going to be a queen. I didn't know you were going to be a queen of the spiritual world. I didn't know you were a queen of the spirits, the queen of Loise. So, this is my story. At the beginning, and I told you when I had to get initiated, in the story people said, oh my goodness, you have to kill someone's gonna die, and all blah 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 blah. You think, I don't know, it's funny because sometimes when people are chosen in our culture, it's very hard for a lot of people to accept. Some people, it's just like something natural. They feel like, hey, if that's what it is, that's what it is. Some people say, because of our conditioning and because of our brainwash against our own culture, they think it's so evil. And the Western world have demonized voodoo for so long. Many years ago, Papa Ogu, which is a warrior spirit, had said something to me and my friend. Remember my best friend, my very good friend, we've been friends for over 30 years. She said, she and I were there, we were there, I remember it was December, and Papa Ogu came. Papa Ogu mounted my spiritual mom, and he said, there's gonna be a time that voodoo is gonna be talked about everywhere, on television, on the radio. This is us. We're looking at each other and we're thinking, okay, sure, that's beautiful, Papa Ogu. I mean, you think that we know it's not impossible. Voodoo, the idea of voodoo, people talking about it on television, it was something you could not imagine. But it was prophesied by the spirit that it was going to happen. But the way it's happening is kind of sad. I'm happy and sad at the same time. Why? Because there's so many charlatans. There are people actually using voodoo to do things that are not very kosher, we could say. Because my time when I was chosen, this path that I took on, even though I knew nothing about it. But I can say one thing my spiritual mother taught me a lot. She said, you know, one of the things I'm going to tell you is always be respectful to the spirits. She said, it doesn't matter who it is. If the person, they are mounted, you always pay respect. Because while the person may be not mounted or whatever, doesn't really matter. Because the spirit is there. You have to respect your spirit. You have to know that the spirit exists. So you always have to be respectful. That's what I learned. And before I went to get initiated, there were practice, because you have to learn how to use the asan. You had to learn how to saluer, presenting. When you have to call on the spirit, you have to learn how to do that. Veve is like beautiful art for the spirit. You have to learn that. You have to learn the prayers. There were so many things, but nowadays we all are mumbles. Everybody's a mumble. Everybody's a Ogun. Everybody's spiritual. Everybody's a healer. Everybody's a psychic. And people tell me, so why don't you on TikTok and do? It's not part of my culture. I can't do something that's not part of my culture. I can't do it. Yes, I can do meditation because I'm told to do it. Like I was told many years ago to actually do that. I mean, even though I just started it, I think I started this year or last year. Anyway, I started it. It's a small group because the way I see it is, if you are spiritual person, because that word we just use it loosely because everybody else is using it, and trust me, I am not trying to put anybody down. I'm just talking based on what I see, because I get overwhelmed when I'm scrolling to TikTok. There's so many people in Haitian voodoo. These things, you can't do that. It is not part of a culture. Why would we do something that isn't part of my culture? I can't do it. Yes, I can stay in front of this camera. I can talk about it because it's important for people to know my own journey and how I got here. It's important for me to do it. It's a must. Just like I do the radio show, I record it and send it to Haiti. We have a group, like I said, nonprofit called Casa Voodoo, that we do that for. And I have the podcast, which is still called The Influencer, and Inner Essence, double I, one N, Essence, Inner Essence. And the podcast, it used to be Anchor, now Spotify bought out Anchor, so now it's in Spotify. It's called The Influencer, and it's Inner Essence. These are things I was told to do. Let me tell you that story. I know some of you probably gonna think, how does the spirit know about podcasts? It makes you wonder, right? But me, I listen and I do. Well, eventually I get it done. And I'm getting better at this. I spent 3 days gathering. And during that process, I have received a lot of messages. And one of the messages that I actually received was, you have to create a podcast and you have to call it The Influencer. I was like, okay. And in my head, and I'm thinking, the influencer, how do I, well, if you're an influencer, you influence people. But that was like a few years ago, okay? I say about 3 years ago. And so the group of people that were part of this group that we went to, and I was telling them, I say, oh, this is the message I received. I receive a message that I need to create a podcast and I have to call it The Influencer. And they were like, oh, okay, The Influencer, like being an influencer. I was like, what do you mean being an influencer? Like, I know this. I had no idea, none at all, that they actually have people who are influencers. I was like, interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that with me, because I was clueless. So I think it was a year later. No, it's not even that long, is it? Probably last year I started doing the podcast, because you have to do what you're told if you trust and respect your ancestors and your loa, your spirits, right? So I did exactly that. So I created the podcast. And in doing this video also, it's like, I don't like being in front of the camera. And I had to say to myself, stop saying you don't like being in front of the camera. Just do what you must. I must share what I must share. So I started making soap too because of the message. Like one day I'm sitting in the kitchen and you have to make soap to help people. I'm like, soap? Yes, you have to make soap. I was like, okay. But I always had the intention of doing the chakra oils because I test everything. So the chakra years ago, I received a message for the chakra oils, like what I need to mix for the chakra oils. So this is what I did. So I bought the oils and I mixed them just like I was the different oils that I'm supposed to mix. And then I was like, I'm gonna test this on myself because I'm very self-aware in that sense. You know, I don't overanalyze. Sometimes if things doesn't make sense, it just doesn't make sense. If it doesn't make sense, I need to know why it's not making sense. I need an explanation. So I have to look a little bit deeper because sometimes you just have to face it, whatever it is, right? So I spent 14 days using the chakra oil. So I was done. I was like, I'm using this for 14 days. I used it for 14 days and that was the end of it. I didn't even think about it. That's like I did it, forgot about it. Then I started being more focused and I started feeling happier. I was like, oh, I like the way that I'm feeling. I'm happy, I'm focused, I'm determined. I just love that stuff. Then I remembered. I was like, oh my God, the chakra oil actually works. So I tested that. Every soap that I made, or every soap that I make, I should say rather, is done with a lot of love, compassion, and energy. First of all, the herbs are directly from Haiti, and they are picked in different bitation. Remember what a bitation? I don't know if I explained it, but a bitation or a démembré is where your ancestors serve their spirit, serve their own ancestors, serve their loi, do ceremonies and all that. It's called a démembré. And then there's bitation. The difference between a démembré and a bitation is a démembré is actually where your great-great-grandparents started their spiritual journey, doing their services, doing their offering for their lois, for their ancestors, for their spirit. A bitation is, let's say for some reason you don't even know exactly where your démembré is because it's a big problem in Haitian voodoo. People are finding this is a big problem. We'll talk about that next time, another episode. A lot of people don't know where their démembrés are. So they go and let's say they purchase a piece of land and they do their own temple there and then they start serving their spirit there. That becomes a bitation. Okay? So that's the difference between a démembré and a bitation. So those herbs are picked in different démembrés from where I'm from in Petit Goave. There's Suspino, there's Obu, there's different places. And I have people that work, they pick up the herbs, we bless the herb or dry in a specific way, and they are processed by hand. And I come here with it, and the oils that I use are essential oil. They're not fragrance oil, they're essential oil. So the soaps are done for different level of how you feel. Because I tell people, you know yourself, you know your body, you know when something is not right. Whether it's medical, get medical attention. But if it's something spiritual, like I keep using this term loosely, I'm sorry, you know yourself. You just feel like something is off. You know, I don't understand. Something funny, something fishy is going on. I just don't understand what's going on with my life. Then that's when you have to look into it. So when I'm making soap, it is blessed. It is a process, and it's make sure that I have enough energy to protect that vibration and the energy that I put in the soap. When you receive it with all the love and the compassion and the spiritual energy that the soap are made of. So again, if you like my video, subscribe and share. Thank you so much, because I know when it comes to videos, you have like mountains of videos of people you can watch, and you choose to listen to me. Thank you for inviting me into your home or whatever it is you're doing, because sometimes we just listening and we're doing other activities. I thank you. May the spirit bless you always. Stay strong. You are loved, you are capable, and you are strong, and you're powerful. Till the next time. Abobo.